think you should.
Welcome to this week's episode of Whoscussion. We're your hosts from Fano, that random guy, and the wonderful, the excellent, the Excelsior, Harriet Skelly.
The Excelsior.
The Excelsior.
Perfect.
For part 8, we're going to be covering the Masque of Mandragora. Wow.
Mandragora?
No, it's
Mandra-
Mandragora.
Mandragora? But it's Gora, though. It's like Gora.
Is it Mandragora?
Just, you know what? We should just get a soundbite of the Fourth Doctor saying it and just put that in there every time because
the Masque of Mandragora.
Yeah, because he's the only one who could say it. I'm pretty sure that nobody else tried to say it. Oh, the bad guy did. What's his face?
Yen Sid.
Yeah. He was he's the only other one who said it. Nobody else says it. It's great.
I'm calling him Yen Sid for the rest of this entire podcast, just so you know.
Fair enough.
Because he's Yen Sid.
He totally looks like Yen Sid. Yeah.
And he even sounds like it's crazy. I went back and watched Kingdom Hearts. It just the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2, just so I could hear it. And I was like, you sound exactly the same as this other guy.
Yeah. I have a feeling that what happened was. Only Tom Baker and this guy and Yen Sid could say that the Mandragora thing. So that's why they came up with that other name, the Dimnos. That's the only reason why they said Dimnos at all is because nobody else could say that.
So we're going to call it the Masque of Demnos. There we go. That fixes it.
Masque of Demnos.
The Masque of Demnos. There we go. Then we're going to be doing the Hand of Fear. And then for part B, we're going to be doing Children of the Revolution, and then the Shadow Trader. And I'm just going to write off the bat, Harriet Skelly, I'm going to be doing Children of Revolution when we get to part B, please.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough.
I'm sorry. I know I'm stealing, but I have to. All right.
Fair enough.
So, the Masque of Mandragora. I feel this is the stronger of the two, so I'm going to give this one to you, Harriet Skelly.
Fair enough. If you're going to take Children of the Revolution, sure, why not? Right, so, the Masque of Demnos.
Yes, the Masque of Demnos.
With Yen Sid. Anyway, so, this one's actually really good, honestly. I guess it's because it's the first of the season, the 14th season of Doctor Who. The 14th. So that's why it's so good. Because it's basically another pilot, really. It's getting people back into the mood of things. It's effectively its own special in its own right. So I understand that that's probably why it's so good and why it seems to have a way better budget in the glean of things. Although the special effects when it comes to the ball of light, not too sure about that.
It was the 70s.
Yeah, we kind of went back from the antimatter monsters we had previously. It seems like they've taken a step back from that. I don't know what that's about. I'm guessing that they probably had a different special effects director at the time. But I guess it's just the special effects that kind of got me. Because a lot of the other effects that they were working with were actually fantastic. All of the costumes were great.
Yes.
Down to the very pinnacle of detail. It was perfect.
And their haircuts were period accurate as well.
All of their haircuts, all of their outfits, the robes and the masks were all great. The lighting effects, even the water rippling effects from the Helix energy when it's coming through, that looks fantastic. It's just the energy that looks just wrong.
Yeah.
Whoever was doing the after effects for it did not do a particularly.
Yeah, man. Let's have a look at who did post.
Does it even?
It doesn't even say.
Yeah, I guess it was just somebody just random. They obviously did not have a professional doing it.
There we go. Ian Scoons.
Sorry, man.
Sorry, man. I feel bad.
This is not your best. You're not your best work.
It's not your best work.
otherwise, it was fantastic. Like every other aspect of this is fantastic. Even like that, even the weird, even them in the helix with the weird circular crystal thing, that was fantastic. And the visual effect for that when they were going in, like the weird lens thing that was going on, that was fine as well. Like that was. I mean, it was pretty dated as an effect, but that's just Doctor Who, really. But otherwise, it was great. So I guess it's probably because they didn't own that was the only effect they had in it, that weird light. I mean, I guess the light where they're at the pedestal was also not very good, but it was just another camera effect. I guess that's kind of the deal, is that they didn't want to spend too much on doing that effect, so they just did camera effects. Like, it looks like the helix is just like an overexposure in most cases, so I don't know. I mean, when they look inside the hood, when they take off the mask and it's got just the red light in it, it's like, why is he just a traffic light? What's that all about? It
reminds me of when 2 and 3 took off Omega's helmet and they were like, oh, they just put it back on.
Yeah, that is actually kind of what it reminds me of as well. It reminds me of like a dream sequence, like when somebody takes off like a mask or something like that, and there's just some random object underneath, like a traffic light or something like that. Like that's what it reminds me of. And the Fourth Doctor is like, oh, okay. And then the effects for when he gets zapped with the helix energy as well. That was kind of weird. I guess it kind of made more sense. Yeah, it kind of made more sense though, because it does kind of look like direct current, but just it's not. It doesn't seem as powerful as it's being like made out to be. It's like being made out to be like some actual ionizing radiation, but it just looks like some electrons passing across, like a lightning strike, but a very small one. Like it would seem
like those orbs you can buy from like the $2 shop that you plug in and you can see.
That's exactly what it looked like. It should have been much larger if it was transmitting as much energy as they were saying it was, that was able to completely ionize flesh just on contact.
Dude, some of the this episode's pretty graphic with its like violence, and the DVD copy of this has G. I'm looking at Tom Baker smiling at me right now, and right underneath it says this is for general audiences. So it's like, I don't know if it is.
I don't know if it is, because there was that corpse that was completely ionized, and we just it was just on screen for a good few minutes.
Yeah, so man, 2 to 5 minutes of this like corpse. They're like looking at it. Tom Baker's like, I'm Tom Baker, and he's like, look.
And then there's like. Yeah, there's that, and then there's that time that he almost like completely decapitated that guy. Like it totally looked like Tom Baker would have done that. Yeah. But I think that they may have stepped that down a little bit during that. Like, I'm sure that Tom Baker grabbed him and was ready to like actually make it look like he slit his throat, and then was like, oh wait, the director was not
the director's like, no.
Like, no, we're not going to have him kill that guy. Maybe just look like you're going to like do that, and then just push him away. Yeah, that's cool. There was a lot of this.
The Doctor kicks so much ass in this story as well. Like when he like trips up the what's it call it, the executioner, and he does it like Indiana Jones style, and Indiana Jones isn't even a character yet, so he's like doing it before Indy does.
Well, it's totally the way that they use the scarf in a lot of senses, is that it seems like it's his whip. Like, it's totally his Indiana Jones whip, where he uses it to trip up people. And in the next story as well, he uses it to trip up people. It seems like his scarf has a lot more tensile strength than just a scarf as well.
Well, it was made by Nostradamus' wife, so, you know.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, this story plays out very much like a Seventh Doctor story, actually, with like these weird like magical elements to it. But in the same brand, it's also like slamming that whole idea of astrology and stuff. Like the whole point of it is that the main bad guy, it seems like he's like a soothsayer hack. But he's actually got some influence over the helix power. Although it seems like he was just sort of tapped on the shoulder by the power, and he's just been using that influence since then. But it does seem like a lot of the things that have been going on prior to the Doctor showing up, of course, were just like him influencing events manually, like him saying that the king was going to die and then poisoning him.
Yeah.
So I don't think he does actually have any like proper influence over stuff. He's just been being told what to do by the Helix, which doesn't even seem to be particularly powerful. It's just got a lot of energy to it, like being able to shoot lightning out of its hands. Like that's about it. It doesn't seem to have any real power over the cosmos. Just being incorporeal is basically.
Yeah. But it knew a lot about Earth's history. Was what the interesting thing as well.
Well, I'm pretty sure that was because it's been watching the whole time.
Yeah.
That's the idea behind it. That it's because of its incorporealness, it's been able to manifest enough on Earth to watch us. I guess the thing that doesn't sit well with me with this one is the reason why it cares at all about humanity is that it has the same exact terror of humanity that Set did.
Yeah.
Sutek, where he was afraid of sentient life eventually taking over for some reason, even though it's all powerful. The Mangadoria Helix. I'm not even going to do that again. The Helix.
Yeah, the Helix
had the same reason for wanting to kill humans, is that it saw in the future. Apparently, I guess it just. Obviously, it thought that in the future humans would get so powerful that they would rise to oppose it. I don't really like that as an idea, honestly.
Because it even knows about the scientists that are coming as well.
Yeah, so I guess it does sort of have some temporal knowledge. But then if it had that temporal knowledge, why didn't it know that it would eventually be defeated in the same way? I don't know. I guess it's because it's a cosmic entity that it does know these things. But realistically, it kind of falls flat when you think about it like that. If it has predetermined knowledge, then why isn't it a bigger evil? Why does it need people to try and help it, and why does it fail in such a way? Why is it thwarted simply by the Doctor, like channeling its energy somewhere else? I don't understand that.
Yeah, can you explain the end to me? Because I have no idea what happens. Yen Sid just disappears? How did the Doctor defeat Yen Sid?
So it seems like during one of those, it seems like Yen Sid actually disappears at some point, where he is completely taken over by the Helix energy and actually just becomes a corporeal form of it. And then the Doctor's plan to defeat the Helix was simply to drain its energy out of Yen Sid. But because Yen Sid was actually basically that energy now, he was just a corporeal form of that. Once the energy ran out, he just completely disappeared. The Doctor took his place. Okay. At what point does the Doctor start wearing Yen Sid's clothes? I don't know either. I think that just at some, I guess at some point during that ultimate fight where he's shooting laser beams at him and he runs out of energy, he obviously, I'm guessing that there's like this event where he just sort of collapses in his clothes because he's run out of power. So then the Doctor just puts the robes on, runs in, saves the day, that sort of stuff. I guess.
Yeah, see, I'm at it, I guess, as well, because you don't see it.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of that end sort of it seems like they just sort of cut it off. They were like, this doesn't need to be said. Like, we don't need to show this. You could just assume it. I guess they were, I guess it's because of the trying to make it, it's because they were trying to end with the Doctor revealing himself as Yen Sid.
Yeah.
I guess that's why that took place, but it wasn't really necessary. Because we obviously knew that the Doctor was going to win. Like that's even back in the time when this was being aired. This is the first episode of a season. Of course, the Doctor's going to win. Yeah. So we didn't need that. Like that could have been like a nice like end of season sort of thing to do, where you have the last episode. For the whole last episode, we think the Doctor's dead for it. Like that could have been more of a deal, but the first episode of a season, you're not gonna pull the wool over anyone's eyes about
Yeah.
that. That's not really necessary. So yeah, there are some good and bad bits about this. Overall, it's a great story. And as I said, the costumes were superb.
Oh, even the locations they filmed in. I'm wondering if they actually filmed in Italy, because it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it is a fantastic setting. There are some casting choices that I'm not too sure about, but also particularly, I do love the fact that whenever any show does any time travel show, any sci-fi show does old England or does old timey like Dark Ages era, they always seem to do these sort of events, like where the king comes out and has this big event, and there always seems to be not enough people. Like, people don't seem to understand that even though it was back ages ago where we didn't have millions of people on this planet, or billions even, there were still hundreds of people in towns.
Yeah.
Like, there would have still been a big crowd when it came to executions or when it came to anything. So the fact that there was only like 10 people around when the Doctor was getting executed, I'm like, that's not quite right. But I understand that it's simply because you have a limited amount of costumes and a limited amount of people.
And a limited amount of money.
And a limited amount of money. So it makes sense for casting, and it honestly gives a better perspective of how little people in the world there were in general. But it does sort of it takes something away from the whole experience, because it's not exactly how it would be. But
yeah, I think that's where video games have the upper hand here, because they can just copy paste models.
Yeah,
then,
where they can
it's a lot easier.
Yeah, they can actually give a proper representation of how it was back then. I guess that's really it. Is that doing like a documentary in a CGI way would probably do better than doing a live action one, because you could actually show exactly how it was. You wouldn't have to try and fill in bits and pieces where you're filming. Like, if you're filming on ruins of the actual place you're doing a documentary on, you can't really show how it was, because it would have looked much better than it does now. Come on.
That's why I like. Have you seen Cosmos? It's the Netflix documentary series.
Oh yes, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I love that when they do the past, it's all animated. And it's
how
way better animation than Power of the Daleks. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Yes.
I'm just like, can we get that good animation, please? Like, I'm not asking for Disney quality, but I'm at least asking for like Saturday morning anime quality. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would be nice.
Anyways,
this story is really good. It's definitely one of the Fourth Doctor ones that you should put on your list of ones to watch. Is there a lot of Fourth Doctor episodes and stories?
But just a casual 7 seasons.
Yeah, just a casual 7 seasons. Just a casual amount. It's definitely a stepping stone for the season as a whole. And it's another one of those Sarah gets captured and gets hypnotized once, honestly.
Yeah, dude, how much does she get hypnotized? That's crazy.
Yeah, I guess that's why it leads up into the next episode with the next story with how she complains about how many times she gets hypnotized and controlled. So yeah, it was a very interesting story. The Masque of Dimnos.
The Masque of Dimnos, exactly. Before we continue, I just want to say that the cast in this is superb. Everybody gives it 110% in their performances, man. And they keep the dialogue like period accurate. But the problem with it being period accurate is that they made it period accurate to England instead of period accurate to Italian, which is a bit frustrating. But they all pronounced Italian superb, so that was great. And I love.
Well, this is actually that actually gives me a good point. This is the first time they bring up as to why. First time Sarah brings up why she can understand other languages as well, and it is because she's being hypnotized. But it's funny that she doesn't register that otherwise, and that they bring that up in plot as well. Is that the Doctor's like, the only reason I knew you were hypnotized is because you actually asked about that.
He's like, yeah, you generally don't care, but As soon as you did, I knew you were being hypnotized. What's good though is that he says it's a Time Lord gift I share with you, and it's the same explanation that the Ninth Doctor gives to Rose. I know I'm not a huge fan of Rose, but I like when that sort of stuff happens, where there's some bleed through from the classic to the new, especially for the Russell T Davies era. That was like very classic.
That's how it should be.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm not. I don't want stories to play out over and over again. But I mean, I'd love like little nods to the past. That's why, even though I really hate the Rings of Akaten or the Rings of Ahol 10, is when he just he talks about coming here with Susan, and the environment they're in feels real Hartnell era. And I was like, oh, that's a good nod. That was like a good reference from the cast, from the crew rather, to have that sort of Hartnell era. Pity the rest of the story wasn't as good as Hartnell era, but this is a historical, the Masque of Dimnos.
Yep.
But I think this is how historicals probably should be handled, where it's very close to the history, but there's a little bit of sci-fi, as opposed to how it's handled in New Who, where it's mostly sci-fi with a little bit of history.
Yeah, I mean, I would be fine with there actually being proper history elements.
Yeah.
And just having a bad guy. We don't need to have an alien influence every time. It's nice when there is an alien influence, but realistically, it doesn't make sense that Earth has been visited in the past by aliens constantly. That's exactly. That's really not how it happened. Even if we believe, even if we try to suspend our disbelief enough to think that it does in the universe, it doesn't seem reasonable that they would end up in the same track as us if they've been visited by aliens over and over again. I'm fine with there being a couple of alien influences, especially ones like this where it seems like it just gets swept under the rug afterwards.
Yeah, and it's easy to do as well because they're in a small town.
Yeah, but in all honesty, if the alien influence was just a simple one, like an alien artifact or an alien weapon or something comes into the hands of a human being back in time, that would make more sense that the Doctor comes in and stops that from affecting time in general.
Oh, well, you're going to love the visitation then.
Yes. So, yeah. The story is great, don't get me wrong, and I'd be happy to have more ones like it. But too much you don't need too much of that. Yeah, you don't need too much.
Exactly. Alrighty, well with that, we'll move into the Hand of Fear. This is Sarah Jane Smith's last story as part of the main cast. It's not her last story indefinitely, but it is her last story as part of the main cast. It's unfortunately, it's not the strongest story for her to have gone out on. Though in saying that, the first 3 episodes I really enjoyed. And then episode 4 just drops the ball. I was just
I don't know what happens.
Yeah, right. Episode 4 drops the ball. It's so crazy. So
it turns into this weird skit-esque thing.
Right.
It's all a stage performance and nothing really happens.
It becomes very hammy.
Yeah, it's what happened? Why were you? It seemed like you were leading into so much more in the beginning. I have a feeling that maybe they were planning on having it be a 6 episode one rather than a 4, and that they were planning on having the alien come back, Eldrad come back to Earth in that 4th episode, and then have 2 episodes of Earth stuff happening. But I guess something happened to make them not want to do that.
Yeah.
So maybe something to do with Sarah leaving, maybe.
I'm going to do a quick summary of what happens, and then I just want to talk about the end, basically.
Fair.
So, we start off in this sort of this giant space igloo, where they've blown up this being that they keep calling Eldrad. And then one of the people are like, oh, but Eldrad could survive. One of his little cells could survive, which reminds me a lot of another cell. Just believe you me, Kamehameha. So they're like, oh, even if one of his cells survives, he might come back to life. And they're like, it's just something we'll have to do anyway. So they use the obliteration command. And then we travel forward to modern times. The Doctors says, hey, look, let's go back to South Croydon. They land in a quarry, and I love that they talk about landing in a quarry, because so much of the first 3 Doctors stuff when they're on an alien world, they filmed it in a quarry, and this was like when the Fourth Doctor comes along, and they're like, he's like, oh, I'm in a quarry, but he's like so self-aware of it. That was good. I think it was a good nod at the fan base. It's played out very seriously. With this bomb goes off, Sarah Jane gets buried under some rubble, and I thought they were gonna, because I've seen the story before, so when I first ever watched the story, I thought they had actually killed Sarah Jane, but then I remembered she was with Tennant.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, hang on, yeah. And I had read and seen the Five Doctors, and I was like, oh, I know she's alive. And I was like, oh, okay, because it's like they raise the stakes quite early in the story, and the stakes just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger to the point that like a nuclear power plant gets brought into the story. It's so random, but they bring in Eldrad. Right? And the Judith Paris version of Eldrad, so the first version of Eldrad we meet, is great. I loved her performance. I really felt she made the character believable for me. And I love that sort of, that air of being a tyrant. And the androgynous nature of her character was really great. She reminded me very much of sort of like Grace Jones, a decade before Grace Jones was a thing.
She kind of reminds me of the original Ghostbusters bad guy.
Yes, exactly.
What's her face?
Gozer.
Gozer, yes. She reminds me exactly of Gozer.
Yeah,
like,
let's have a look, actually. Was Judith Paris Gozer? Because she does look a lot like Gozer, right? I'm just going to look that up real quick. Judith Paris, Judith Paris, the 80s. No, it's not. That would have been cool though. If she was Gozer, I would have been like, girl. So I thoroughly enjoyed her performance. Oh, she's still around too. That's cool.
Nice.
And so she really made me buy into the character of Eldrad. How she talks about, like, you as an audience member know she's lying, but she gives it such a believability when she's telling the Doctor and Sarah about the fact that she was a good person to her people. And I just feel that was like perfect, and I was like, yes, this is great. But then they like kill off the Judith Paris version, and we have the Stephen Thorne version, and I hated every millisecond he was on screen. Yeah,
it seemed like his character was just like a caricature after that. Yeah, he was a cartoon.
Yeah,
version.
The whole last episode's a cartoon. It's bad.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Which sucks because like I know Stephen Thorne's a great actor. I've seen some of his other work. And I'm just like, oh, this is really weird that, like, you just, like... And, like, they didn't... Like, I understand that the character goes through a regeneration process, and we know from the Time Lords that regeneration processes can change one's personality. But to become, like, not the same character anymore was peculiar. Like, none of the traits carry over, none of the character motivations carry over, and then he just becomes this, like, real shouty, I'm trying to be Brian Blessed character. Like...
Yeah. Like, it was really weird. Like, he suddenly just became like a child, a child version of himself. It didn't make sense at all.
Yeah, it didn't gel with me. I didn't like that at all. It ruined the whole story for me. I feel this really lets the whole ending down. But there's a real, sort of calm ending for when Sarah Jane leaves. And I love that it's like subtle. She just sort of gets dropped off, and it's just sort of nice. It's leads into one of my favorite stories, The Deadly Assassin. I love The Deadly Assassin, but we've already done it, right? Which means I don't get to watch it again.
Did we? I don't think we did.
We did it? Yes! Okay, because I can't wait to watch that again. So, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like we might have done it before. I'm going to have to go back over some old episodes of Whoscussion to find out. I really hope we haven't, because I love this story.
I feel like we haven't. I'm pretty sure that we haven't, because I know we've done some other things on Gallifrey, particularly, but we did, because we only did one story for the Fourth Doctor, because we did Fifth and Sixth and Seventh.
Yeah, we did Brandon Morbius.
Yeah, so I don't believe that we did this one. Don't believe so.
Good. I'm going to go over Whoscussion though and make sure, because I don't want to retread all Waterfall. I love that story. But anyway, this is a good passing. The Doctor gets a message from Gallifrey. He's like, humans can't come, even though in the next story on Gallifrey I bring Leela.
Even though I don't really need to at all. But it's okay. Sarah Jane wants to leave anyway.
Yeah, it's okay. Elizabeth Sladen has a way bigger career ahead of her. And she really did.
I really should not. I actually probably should have left at the same time.
Yeah, exactly, right? I probably should have left at the same time. So she heads off, and it's just sort of, it's just like, I don't know, feels like it was in a more dramatic series, this ending, because it was like somebody getting dropped off at the bus stop, if you know what I mean. And I love that, like, she gets stopped at the wrong place, and she just like tells this dog about it, and I love how like sort of human that was. It's like she's real shitty, she's got no one around to talk to about how shitty she is, so she plays it off as like being hilarious with this little dog, and the dog leaves her. I love that so much. The dog's like, I'm getting away from you, you're quite clearly crazy, I'm leaving. And yeah, that is the end of The Hand of Fear. If the fourth episode was as strong as the first three, I would really recommend it, because like there's a huge body count in this as well. I find it funny that, like, you know, these episodes are rated G, because like, no they're not.
Yeah,
no they're not. You can't give them the same rating they had in the 70s. Like, you just can't. But they do. And yeah, it's, I don't know, the bow out is really good. Apparently Unit was supposed to be involved in this, but as we know, Baker wasn't a huge fan of Unit, so and that would have made sense, especially with the whole like nuclear part been involved.
Yeah, like there was. I think that's also probably a part of it. Is I guess like the second two episodes, the actual last two episodes that would have happened in here, is that it would have been Unit after they'd got back. Unit would not have been impressed with what happened.
Yeah.
And then that would have led into Sarah leaving. Like that would have made a lot more sense. So I'm guessing, yeah, that also probably played a part in it. Is that that Tom Baker didn't want Unit in there, so they got rid of those episodes.
So they got rid of those episodes because like Unit are quite clearly the ones dropping the bomb on the plant in episode 3 as well.
Yeah.
I love the director of the plant. He was like my favorite character in this whole story. I loved him to bits. He was just like, especially when he's like, I'm gonna go out with my ship, and then he calls his wife, but he gets his daughter instead. He goes, you just tell your mom I love her.
Yeah. There was
like,
some intense stuff right there.
I'm just like, oh, this is perfect. But and then Eldrad just sort of happens, and it's sad that it sort of goes out in a whimper. I think they handle the end really well with Sarah Jane Smith. But I just kind of wish it was handled a bit better, the final episode, especially like how they kill Eldrad with like the scarf, like it's the Benny Hill show or something.
Yeah, it gets like tripped over, it falls in a hole, dumb. And it does like that. He does a real like the proper cartoon falling to his death.
Yeah,
like. Whoa! Exactly like Wile E. Coyote falling. Like that's exactly what happened. Like I kind of like expected him to like put up a sign at the bottom being like "ouch." Like that's how cartoon it was.
Yeah, it sucks because like I don't know if you had the same experience as me, but like I felt it was a really strong story, especially Eldrad, like Judith Paris. Wow, and then the last episode happens.
Yeah, it was solid right up until that point. Like as soon as that happened, it just as soon as like. Watching it, and because I'm watching it immediately after each other, not like waiting a week. Just I can only imagine like people who had been like thinking about it for like a whole week, and then having this episode come out. Like I imagine that they sort of like would have thought they would have had a stroke or something. This character just like became completely different.
Yeah.
So anyone who hadn't had the ability to watch it immediately after would have like felt like they'd been robbed of something. But as soon as I watched it, I'm like it just like it actually could see in my mind, and I could see it clearly that the script just fell over, just like something just cancelled itself out. Like there was like an explosion in the editorial department, and just they only released what they had on file. Like what happened? It was weird.
I can so imagine Philip Hinchcliffe being all like, "All right, kids, what have you got?" Oh dear God. Poor Philip Hinchcliffe. But yeah, with that, we'll wrap up part A and we'll move on to part B. Catch you all there.